Patrick.
It's the Brisbane Lions Fancast with JB and Patrick. Thanks to Hop on Brewery Tours and Crisp Communications. We're in the pre-finals bye week. We've still had plenty of footy that we will chat about very shortly, and everyone else has heard it by now, Patrick. You haven't. You're possibly the last person to hear this. I had a dabble with some AI music, and that will be the...
fucking hell.
You're going to hate it. It's going to be the intro this week. It's a little bit of a pop-punk number.
So you've gone AI music, which I'm diametrically opposed to.
Yep.
Pop-punk.
Yeah, I know.
Something that as a fucking heavy metal guy, not happy.
But people can let us know how they feel about it if they want it to make a return in the future. But I thought I'd just sneak it in this week. And a big shout out to everyone that got in touch for your birthday last week as well. You would have known.
Yeah, shit. Sorry, I buried the lead on that one, talking about all my angriness. But yeah, it was very nice. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
But you were right. It's sort of like generally uncomfortable. But here we are.
All right, well, let's get into talking about some footy. We've got a big show in some ways and a small show in other ways. We're going to have a chat about the VFL. We'll have a little bit of a chat about the All-Australian because this time last week when we were recording, the squads hadn't even been announced. So we'll do a bit of a recap on that one. Of course, we've got a elimination final coming up against Carlton on Saturday, so we'll have a bit of a chat about that. Ross... one of our listeners has chimed in with a fun little, I guess, activity quiz game for us to do. So we'll finish things off with that, and we'll announce the winner of the Hop on Brewery Tours voting system for the home and away series, which will probably
colloquially known as the...
It's colloquially known as the JB, and you get the Patrick as the finals award.
Mine's one we can throw out when we stop making it in 5 years. So.
All right, well, let's get stuck into it because I went to Brighton Home's Arena yesterday to watch the grand final rematch between the Lions and the Roos in the girls. And I've got to say, straight off the bat, hot day, very little shade at Brighton Home's Arena, but still a fantastic vibe and a great ground to go to watch footy. But yeah, the result was obviously very, very disappointing because the Roos were way too good.
Yeah, I saw the article pop up that it was like the biggest ever defeat, but it didn't seem quite as bad as it was. I didn't watch it because I had a busy weekend, so it was sort of the one that kind of wasn't able to be done. But yeah, what happened?
North Melbourne were really good. They were tough in the air. They just had numbers everywhere, and the Lions' defensive structure was just not there whatsoever. It was really quite a poor showing from the Lions, if I'm perfectly honest, but the Kangaroos were equally as good and obviously wanted to exact some revenge after the grand final last year. So it was one-way traffic for a majority of the game, aside from Ali Anderson, who really dug in for the Lions, especially like in the engine room where they were getting towed up a little bit. She finished with 29 touches, 15 clearances. The next best was 6. And 7 tackles next to her name as well. So she really dug in when not a lot of others were willing to.
It's worth probably noting, I think last year they started slow-ish.
Yeah, they got done by Richmond, I think, round 1 last year. It wasn't quite the shellacking that that this game was. But yeah, they certainly dropped a few games last year that they shouldn't have. And look, I'm not going to lose faith in this team that are always thereabouts, and I really, really rate Craig Starcevich as a coach, so I'm sure he will get the girls to bounce back.
That's all good. I think, yeah, we were a bit robbed last year of that, the fabled $1 million.
Yes.
That we didn't get, and that's probably out the door with the way that the men's team finished, given that it's a home and away thing rather than a finals thing, so how good. But yeah, no, I think if we've realised anything from all of the Lions, all encompassing, that they can definitely bounce back. So nothing too terminal, I don't think, with that. I
was thinking about it actually throughout the week. Last year, obviously the men made a grand final, the women won the premiership, and the VFL team made a prelim. So, as a club, it's in a pretty strong position, like all in all, and I probably don't think about that often enough. Like, been fairly high performers on all levels for a few years now, which is a really great sign. And I think Greg Swan probably has a lot to do with that. And David Noble across the way, and Danny Daly, whose name is getting thrown up again for being poached around the league. So hopefully he's still planning to stick around for a little bit. But yeah, I just thought that was worth mentioning because I was reflecting on it throughout the week, and I thought, you know what, that's bloody good for a club as a whole.
Yeah, we're in a position that a lot of clubs would want to be in, I would say, just in a general sense. But yeah, it's fun, like going on little looks at things that were, it's funny. I'm pretty sure like Craig Starcevich was. I was saying before the show that I'd finally gotten around to like watching the grand final DVDs that Brooksy had brought down for me like last year, because who has a DVD player? And yeah, I'm pretty sure Craig Starcevich is a runner in 01.
Lovely.
One of the runners, because they had about fucking 5. But yeah, it's just fun seeing those sorts of things. And yeah, the Danny Daly stuff, like just hopefully someone can like chain him to the city. So Greg Swan as well, all of them, just keep him there.
All right, now the other game that we had across the weekend, heartbreak for the VFL team with I guess a lot of people saying a dubious downfield free. It's hard to really get a gauge on how there it really was with the VFL stream because there's no replays or slow-mos or anything like that, so you only get like a second of frame on the very edge of it. So people that were there will really know. But yeah, not an after the goal siren, but a very last-minute goal to Ryan Gardner, known goal kicker, gets them the 4-point win. So thankfully we got the double chance. But yeah, a heartbreaking way to go down in that qualifying final.
Yeah, it's really windy.
Yes.
Down here, it's really windy. So, and it doesn't seem like it's a kind breeze. Because it's just you sort of sit there and go, oh, well, it's so windy, they should be like kicking like 5 goals or whatever. But it's just not really the case. I thought they played pretty well, and it's interesting to see their structure like kind of mirror the first team a little bit. It wasn't really kind of in sync. Although they made a prelim last year, it seemed a little bit more haphazard. Nice to see sort of like new guys through the midfield with like JL playing a bit more in the forward half. But the main thing for me was just keeping an eye on like Payne and Rev. And Payne, he played the game, so that's the most important part for me. And he had some really good moments in the last quarter, I think.
Yeah.
So a couple of good smothers and some spoils and stuff like that. Bulldogs were doing something interesting with what's his name, Buku.
Yep.
Buku Karmas, where he basically just played at one end of the ground the whole game, never moved, just played in so the ball would kind of hit him over the back in the wind all game.
I like
whether
that.
It was defending, whether it was out the front, and that kind of worked for them because he sort of changed the game in the last quarter. So, credit to them, I guess.
It's like it was very different to a lot of VFL games that I've watched across the year, because obviously both teams had a lot of AFL listed players, and I think in the end Footscray probably had a few more AFL listed players rolling around. They had Sanders, Poulter, Riley Garcia, who I really rate. James Harms was in there. Johannesson, Buku, as you mentioned, Oscar Baker's there, Caulfield, Riley West, who is like a walk-up start for any Bulldogs team, Alex Keith, who has been a key defender at AFL level for a long, long time, Gardner as well. Whereas we had the same, we had JL and, Priz and Darcy Fort and Harry Sharp and Tunstall and G. Madden and Shadow. Good to see him play a full game and a decent game down in the VFL as well. But yeah, it was all about keeping an eye on Jack Payne and Bruce for that one.
Darcy Ford had a really good game. It's just as he was.
68 hit-outs. Crazy.
How many, sorry?
68 hit-outs for Ford in the end. That's ridiculous.
Interesting to see how many of those players have played in like an AFL grand final. It's funny.
Yeah.
Quite a lot between both teams. And I know that some's going back a fair way, but it was a pretty good game. It's just a bit of a shame. And I think Darcy Craven, hard to tell, but I think he was culpable for the downfield and then obviously wanted to make amends and just didn't quite have the legs, which is a bit of a shame.
And he'll learn from that.
It looked like a good kick, and then it just was like, no, I'm not going in. Not a chance. So they will lick their wounds, but I think the performance was pretty handy. They didn't lose by 92 points and still kick 100, which is one of the great anomalies in sport, surely.
That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy, that Frankston game, hey?
So do we need any indication that wildcard round probably isn't that great of an idea?
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought so.
Because everyone seems to love it, and I think it's probably just broadcasters getting in people's ears. Now, like, I've sort of said it before, I'm not against a finals restructuring when 20 teams come into the competition, because I'd sooner almost see it be like you play everybody once, so you play 19 home and away games.
Yep.
And then you could extend the finals to 10 teams and make some magic new formula. But as far as this is going, like, I'm pretty sure I'm trying to find the ladder, but trying to find VFL shit on the app is so hard.
Yeah, it's
you're like
difficult.
clicking and you're going like here, and it takes you here. It takes you back in time. So I'm trying to find the ladder. Can't find the ladder. Whatever.
Well, what do you need to know?
Well, did both teams that like I don't think so. Frankston beat Gold Coast, right?
Yes.
Yeah, dusted by 92 points. And then I think it was Williamstown, they retained their position, right?
Yep. So they beat Box Hill.
Yeah, but in the week before, so they played whomever they played, Richmond.
Yep.
Yeah, to knock Richmond out. So yeah, I guess it's the team that finished 10th got absolutely pumped.
Yeah.
So
It's their and for Frankston, it's a good effort. It's their first final series in however many years being in the VFL. So it is a good effort for them. But yeah, they got absolutely shown up by a team that is now moved up to 5th, and Southport is obviously a very, very strong football team. So
just a funny thing regarding Frankston. So when you sort of look through Tyson Milne,
sure,
Stephen Milne's son.
Oh, is it?
Yep, Jackson Voss, Brett Voss's son. So father-sons, I looked them up because, I'm a bit petty. So I looked them up. There were rave articles about both of them at about the time of their draft year, these father-sons for St Kilda, and didn't turn out being very good. So they have had father-sons, St Kilda. They've just been a bit shit. So maybe they should be quiet. Yes. So funny that, and then you got guys like Jack Nunes. It is funny looking at players that have been in AFL teams and just see where they kind of
end up.
Yeah. Yeah, quite an interesting one. But yeah, largely the VFL stuff. Like, we will end up playing. I've clicked a button and now I'm back into the AFL.
Yeah, honestly, I don't really know, and the VFL doesn't really get updated as quickly as the AFL system online either. So at this stage, I've actually got no idea. So it's going to be a wait and see. And by the time people are listening to this, they'll probably have a better idea of what's next for the VFL team.
Let's just say we're probably playing Williamstown. Why not?
Sure, that'll do.
The big fixture against Williamstown this weekend. So, hard fought, but in the end, you can't always win. And I mean, to me, selfishly, that was more about just like getting run into Payne's legs.
Yeah, 100%.
So, very good in the end. He's a very tall man.
He is. All right, this time last week, we had no idea that the All-Australian squad was just about to be announced because we were doing this on the Sunday night, came out the next day. We had 5 in the end, which was a bit of a surprise. 3, we sort of figured. Joe, I think earlier in the year, a lot of us would have gone, yeah, sure, he could make squad. And then Cam Rayner, with a bullet, making the 40-man squad, I think came as a surprise to just about every footy fan, Lions fan or not.
It came as a surprise to everybody and basically as a joke to most people, I think. On the back of about 7 really good games that I think distorted his stats.
Yeah.
Pretty wild.
Look, and it's obviously nothing against Cam Rayner. We love him, but I don't know that he's playing an All-Australian squad year. It's definitely been his best year career-wise, and, while it still hasn't been consistent, it's been his most consistent. It was just a shock, and I don't think anyone was surprised when he didn't make the 22. But
no, not at all.
but we were shocked that our man Harris Andrews did not make the 22.
Once again, the grand snubbing of Harris Andrews, which we're on its 4th consecutive year here. And I mean, they talk about kind of the romanticism of like, so-and-so's been a 7-time All-Australian or an 8-time All-Australian. It's like there's a different reality where Harris Andrews is a 6-time All-Australian already.
Yep.
There's a little bit of Mal Michael in it. And for anyone that doesn't know, Mal Michael was the fullback for the Lions in 01, 2, 3, 4. He was pretty friggin' good. Across that stretch, he was clearly the best fullback.
Yep.
But he never won an All-Australian because individuals had, quote-unquote, better years in each of the years. And we're talking like random people like Matthew Pavlich playing as fullback. Matty Scarlett had one. There was some guy from Hawthorn, whatever. So that was sort of one of the things that he was disappointed about in his career looking back, is that he never won an All-Australian blazer just because he was the best fullback, clearly. And there's a bit of that with Harris because I had a bit of a look at it, and it just seems like they've chosen a tall defender to be their. We're going to put a new guy in every year, and Harris kind of just makes way. Yeah, every year it was like Alia, Cam Wilkie, it was like Wiedering. I think Luke Ryan's a 2-timer. I think.
Yeah,
and
potentially.
then there's someone else in 2022. But it's just like, are you telling me that Harris Andrews isn't the first? Everyone is picking him first if you're making an actual team. There's no way.
Yeah, I think it was universally, like, everyone was really surprised that he didn't make the team. Obviously, the club decided to release an article, like a whole article about the snubbing, which is a little bit strange, a little bit cringy, and a lot of people are saying, why are you focusing on this and not on the finals game you've got coming up ahead? And I got to agree with that. Like, I
mean, it's probably just some intern writing, probably me, like my equivalent over there, like. But I haven't read it.
It's just pointing at the facts that everyone already knows, that obviously Harris Andrews probably should have been the All-Australian fullback or centre halfback, or at least chuck him in a back pocket because he deserves to be in that team. If for some reason you have to have 3 talls in there, and Luke Ryan maybe being a tall, then he has to be one of the 3. Anyway, we all know the All-Australians are fast. There's 13 midfielders in there, Nick Dacos on the wing. It just gets more and more ludicrous every year, and like the Brownlow, it's sort of losing a little bit of its shine.
Yeah, watching the footage, the coverage, that sounds seedy. Watching the coverage, it was interesting to see. So the comparative to this year and last year. So last year, with Nick Dacos missing quite a lot of the back end of the year and obviously not getting the coach's award, not getting whatever. They really wanted to make sure he got some airtime on like best second year player, like, which was an award that they obviously pulled out of their ass to give to him last year. Harry Sheasel won that this year and was just like, by the way, he won that. So didn't have his award because it wasn't Nick Dacos, which I find to be funny. So other things, obviously, like Massimo D'Ambrosio didn't make it on a wing. He should have.
Yep.
Because if you're going to be serious about having people playing positions. Now, I was listening to Corns and King talk about it, and I said this to you off air. It's like Corns was at his frustrating worst, I guess, in that exchange where he's sort of trying to justify the voice of a panel, not necessarily his own opinion, but he's sort of saying, like, in terms of the wingers, there aren't that many in the competition, and I would challenge that heavily because we've got 3 that we know are going to be there. We know every week we line up, it's going to be Fletcher on one side, Berry on one side, and Archie swapping in and out. That's just the way that it is.
And Bruce when he's there.
True wingers. Yeah. And they're very important structurally. And like they've been important structurally throughout. And it's like, if you're going to say, there aren't that many that have had all Australian caliber years, then why do we have to put in 2 or 3 talls every year when the quality of the talls, not so much like kind of this year, Hogan's been a standout, but like you don't have to have 1 and 2 in the Coleman every time. Like,
well, they didn't because Kerno didn't make it this year.
Yeah. So I guess shut up, me. But like, just because you like are the highest stat output, it doesn't mean that you've necessarily had the best year relative. So, yeah, it just seems a little bit insincere, which is nothing new, I guess. But yeah, Zach Merritt missing out amidst all of the midfielders, given that a lot of people were saying that he could have been captain.
Yeah.
It was almost just like a pick whichever you want out of him, Cripps and Bontempelli. So, yeah, it's sort of thing where you just, like the Brownlow, you're slowly just caring less.
Yeah, I mean, it's always like it's never going to please everyone. Like, there are always going to be people that are upset because, you know, player A from my team didn't make it and all that sort of stuff. But I think especially Harris was the universal, like, what are you thinking? Even Kingy, who found every reason not to put Zorko and Neil in his mock-up team, had, you know, put Harris in there. But Neil obviously makes the bench in amongst, you know, 48 midfielders in the All-Australian team, so good on him. And obviously Zorko, the oldest ever All-Australian recipient and the biggest gap in between, you know, first and second. So breaking some records there. It's funny, I was thinking back to, you know, pre-round one, and we were talking about, you know, the team structure, and we were sort of talking about, you know, what Zorko's role going to be, and then McKenna goes down, and I'm sort of tossing up the idea of Zorko playing as a halfback, and you're like, nah, like, I don't know, more sort of your half-forward style, and then Coleman goes down, and we both go, it has to be Zorko now, and
yeah,
look, it's turned out to be really, really good, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's a pleasant surprise. And I think it's like another example of just like a lightning in the bottle moment within the season that I think it would be hard to try and recapture next year, but we just got to go with it for what we're doing at this point in time. Like, it's some of the stuff when the Coleman injury happened, like the stuff we were talking about and the stuff particularly you were kind of championing with Zorko going back there, and then even the fabled article, the one article that I wrote was quite like, this is the most like for like we've got, but I'm scared, basically, was the synopsis of my analysis of Zorko in that position. And it was really nice to hear him talk. Also nice to hear someone with personality next to someone with no personality being interviewed. But he seems like he's in a good place generally. And the thing is like, Zorko's always kind of a hard one in the likability scale, or he has been over the years. And I think he seems more mature now, which you'd probably expect from a 37-year-old. So, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, we'll see him go around again next year. Still, hopefully, waiting on a deal for Froggy as well, which would be a nice way to cap things off this year. All right,
I think just sticking on. I think last year's All-Australian team, Harris Andrews aside, is a perfectly fine team in terms of they've got players, they've got the right amount. So last year's probably your best in terms of a team that makes sense.
Yeah, balanced team.
2 wingers, an extra two. Yeah. And then just an aside, Zach Butters winning most courageous player.
Yeah.
How many guys has he punched this year?
Well, same thing with us releasing a cringy article. Port Adelaide released this like montage of Zach Butters like brave acts,
punching people,
and it was just like him
like throwing chairs at water girls, and
just being an absolute numpty. So yeah, look, whatever.
He's a millimeter away from like a 5-game suspension, basically. That's how he plays. And I'm not saying that I like Zach Butters the player. But he's maybe there's like a separating church from state here. But it's like, to me, courageous players are like selfless, courageous acts that are not, you know, not deemed to be, I don't know, noticeable or whatever. I don't know. Who knows?
It's certainly
anyone else that's
like, since the days of Jonathan Brown and Joel Selwood and Luke Hodge winning that award, it's a bit of a drop off, isn't it?
Yeah, but even Luke, the idea of Luke Hodge winning it is a bit like, I mean, that guy was pretty dirty on the field. Like, I kind of feel like courage doesn't really go hand in hand with like bumping people's heads into posts.
No, I guess
And
not.
at least when Brownie was getting them, he hadn't been to the tribunal in about 5 years. So, yeah, and it's isn't it player voted?
I think so, maybe, yeah.
That's insane. Like maybe they all do have rocks for brains. I don't know. Maybe they need to have concussion tests on a Monday morning, which is something we can segue into. I sent you a message during the week. This is completely out of the blue. But we watched ahead of the
Paul Marsh.
Paul Marsh.
Yep.
Pillsbury Doughboy, just ambient. That's what he was. I've never seen a person so useless in my life trying to give an interview. He was being eaten alive by Eddie Maguire.
Yep.
And some of the stuff he was saying was entirely insane.
Yeah, that was.
Do you have any thoughts on it?
Yeah. Look, he was literally just doing his job of being the union rep for the players, and whatever was going to be in the players' best interest, that's what he was saying. Regardless of whether it carried any logic or common sense, he was going to say it. And that's his job, and sure. Eddie was making salient points of, hey, how about we do this, 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 and this, which would be good for, the greater good, common sense, and society as a whole. No.
Yeah, pretty much. And also he needs to pull his, I know I'm not exactly repping fucking fashion here, but he needs to pull his shirt down so it's nice and straight and not sit around like a sack of shit. It was funny, the interjection of the underbelly related stuff.
Yeah.
Of but it does make sense, because if you have if you get caught with a bag of drugs in your hand, even if you're a player that's not addicted to drugs or whatever, or you're a young player and you get caught up in the wrong thing, people can have that over you.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's no reason why, go back to the 90s and whatever.
Mate, just look what happened to Bomber Thompson. That's as far as you need to look.
Yeah.
Jake King as well. Players that they were obviously more open about being involved with, underworld figures. But, Bomber Thompson's gone from one of the most beloved Essendon figures then to one of the most beloved Geelong figures, and potentially, one of the greatest coaches ever. And his life just went downhill because he got involved with drugs and bikies and stuff.
Which is not good, because he's a shell of a person, and I don't know, he just seems like he's entirely a different person now. So, but it's I don't understand, and I can understand the idea of not naming and shaming and stuff. We talked about this earlier on in the year, but if I was running the AFL, I'd be drug tests on Thursdays for everybody, concussion tests on Mondays for everybody. It's easy, because as soon as you remove the stigma of not naming and shaming and having people know that don't fuck with this. And if they know that, then the culture bleeds out, because no one goes, oh, maybe I'll try this, because it's why? It's why are you, senior player, telling me who's a rookie to come in and do this, when it's you're putting yourself and my career at risk.
Yeah.
Whereas at this point in time, because it's an opt-in thing, there's no problem. There's no getting in trouble. I don't know. Maybe I'm old. I don't know. It just seems very simple.
Well, I mean, that whole system is getting the overhaul across the year, and it'll be interesting to see where it finally lands and when it does in fact land, because I think they'd earmarked June or July, but it's obviously September now and nothing's been announced, so I guess it'll be an end of season thing at this stage.
So all in all, it was an insightful chat in the way that it was insane. I suppose is what a lot of people might say about me.
All right, we've got an elimination final coming up on Saturday against Carlton, and I guess the big talking point, apart from Vossi being Batman with his citizen's arrest.
Oh, no, Michael Voss.
Which is obviously awesome, much like when, John O'Brien retired and he got hit by that car and the car had to be written off.
Toad.
Vossi performing a citizen's arrest on some carjackers just adds to the the legacy and the story of Michael Voss. It's just awesome. But the talk about this game coming up is how many players are Carlton going to bring back, and it looks like McGovern and the two keys, Mackay and Curnow, are basically locked in at this point, barring anything happening in training this week. And then there's the question marks over, Jack Martin, Chera. I doubt De Konning's going to be playing. I think he's missed too much footy and his injuries were too serious. The other one is Sam Doherty. Obviously, his name is being thrown up quite a bit. And look, it's
I feel like that's like almost suicide bomber territory there. Like, oh well, if the knee goes, it goes.
I guess. But, like, surely Doherty's got more years left in him if he does the recovery properly. And look, they're not going to play him unless he's medically clear. Like, I don't think Vossi's that desperate or stupid. But what I'll say is if you want to play Sam Doherty off, the best part of 10, 11 months not playing footy, fine. Go for it. I think that can only help us, probably. And I get they'll get an emotional lift. But there's no way he's going to be playing a full game of AFL footy at finals pressure and pace to the best of his ability, surely.
I think he's the one that you wouldn't play. You'd be willing to risk all the other ones. Someone said, I don't know who, it's just put them all in and hope for the best. You've got nothing really to lose for them. So we should be... I don't think it changes a lot in the way that we prepare.
No, I don't think so. I mean, obviously, it places more importance on someone like Jack Payne coming back if they're playing their two big talls.
Yeah, but I don't think it's an element of if their talls weren't playing, we wouldn't play Jack Payne anyway.
No,
so
you're right.
It doesn't really matter, and whichever smalls they go with will not dictate to us really. So,
well, Owies will be missing is probably another selection thing we need to chat about. He's got that suspension that's been held up, which, given our problems with small forwards in the last few weeks of the home and away season, is probably a bit of a blessing. But they've still got, Motlop and that new fella Moyer, and I think Durden's injured, but they've still got some handy small forwards as well.
They got some.
Yeah.
But it's very much an element of we just pick our team. We pick our team, and there's almost there's no point being kind of caught up in the noise of what they're going to be doing. There's no there's the only relevance is that we're playing against them, which seems like a big relevance, but it's largely we just pick our team. Pick our team for finals, and we go forward with that as a team, barring injury or suspension. So that's what I'd be doing.
What
our team would be Jack Payne in, Starcevich in, and
yep.
I mean, we're still on the fence with the McKenna thing because I think if teams put a lot of work into Zorko, that could stifle us.
Yeah, I think I'm leaving McKenna in. I think it's going to be a case of Sharp and Dara Joyce out and those two in, and then probably maybe Noah or McKenna as the sub or something along those lines. I think that
might be what I said last week.
Yeah, I don't think it's changed a whole lot since then. It's interesting, like there is all this chat about Carlton and obviously big Victorian club and, who's going to be playing for them. There hasn't been a whole lot of noise coming out of the Brisbane Lions camp, aside from that stupid article about Harris Andrews. And, for me, you can look at it two ways. It's either a good thing, and this is how I'm choosing to look. It's a good thing because they're just heads down, focused, working on goal kicking perhaps, and just blocking out the outside noise.
I'm getting deja vu from the start of the season. Of it's been the quietest off season of all time, and then there was an explosion at round 2, and it's like, oh god.
Yeah, I know.
Oh no.
But there's obviously the criticism of our club is they do seem to keep fans at arm's length a lot of the time as well. So they're not exactly as opening and welcoming as some other clubs out there. So that's another way to look at it. But I'm choosing to look at it. They're locked in and they're dialed in. They're focused. They're trying to correct the issues that were obviously plagued us over the last month of footy heading into finals, and hopefully they've just been working their behinds off.
Well, hopefully. I mean, as I said to you, I was watching the 2001 Grand Final and we were 11-17 at one point in that game. So to say that you can't win premierships when you're inaccurate is not right, but also you would like to be more accurate, I suppose.
100% you would.
Yeah. And one of the things looking at that game, and I know this is an aside, but it seems like there's the biggest difference. I mean, there's a lot of difference between watching football from 20 years ago and watching football now, but the biggest difference is that there's an expected amount of implied accidental head contact that happens in that game, whereas now it's any contact to the head is you've been shot with a cannon. Whereas back then you've just got stray arms and stuff, and people know and people understand, and that's why you wear things like mouth guards. because you're like, oh, I don't want my teeth to get knocked out by like an errand forearm that's not really going to do any damage. Because you're sitting there going, wow, look at this. There's just arms everywhere and people head over the ball, shoulder over the ball. No one's leading with the head.
Yep. Different game.
Yep. And the thing is, it's arguably safer. Yeah, the worst were worse.
Yep.
But there's less, you're almost getting 1 or 2 concussions a game these days. So, and maybe you were there because I'm pretty sure James Hird said he doesn't remember the second half. But it's neither here nor there. He probably led with his head, didn't he? Oh, God. All right, move on. I'm trying to find this Zach Butters article about him being like super brave or something, and I can't. But
they released it. It was like a footage. Like it was like a little highlight reel on their social media pages. I'll send it to you at some point.
I'm just gonna eliminate that I've looked up Port Adelaide on Google, so
that's good.
Suggested.
You don't want that ruining your algorithm.
No.
All right, so 7:30 Saturday. I'm going to be there. Secured my tickets. I hope everyone that's especially Lions fans that were able to were. I want to give a shout out to Pete last week, who got in touch right before the ticket sales, who isn't able to make the game. So he said he had 2 priority 1, 2 priority 2 barcodes that he wanted to make sure went to Lions fans. So we got those out to Lions fans. So that's going to be really cool. And Pete, that's just GC behaviour. So well done, Pete. So thank you for that. Hopefully it's not like last year where it did not feel like a home game for Brizzy fans. Hopefully, all the Lions fans got their hands on tickets and we can even that out a little bit and create some noise.
Well, even like opening round, can we do a dress code at the Gabba that's like, don't let people wearing suits in? Like it's like you're in the nosebleeds. What are you wearing a suit for? Like, you're not in the members. Get the fuck out. Do that. And then don't have all them Blues Brothers turn up. Easy way.
Obviously the last couple of games between us and Carlton have been, big talking points for different reasons. Opening round, obviously cracking first quarter, Carlton brought it back. And then prelim last year, Carlton cracking first quarter, we brought it back.
Don't discount the home and away game last year as being big talking points, given that was the Carlton walkout, similar to, I suppose, the effect we had on Port Adelaide this year with the booing.
Yep.
We had the grand walkout middle of last year, so there has been some heat between teams, I think.
Yep.
And I think, opening round really opened some wounds that we're still trying to close now, so...
Well, I mean, it's obviously been our problem for the last couple of weeks as well. Getting out to great starts, dwindling away leads, even that Essendon game to an extent as well. None bigger than the opening round. But still probably the best quarter of footy we've played all year was that first quarter and opening round. And watched it absolutely get pissed away across the next 3 quarters. So... it's going to be no surprise, and I hate to say this, but this game's going to be won in the midfield because obviously our game plan relies on it, and they've got a very strong midfield, and Paddy Cripps is playing some enormous footy at the moment, some real Michael Voss-esque captain's footy for that club at the moment. So he's not exactly getting the players to follow along with him, but if we can get the job done in the midfield, it's going to go a long way to us hopefully getting a win here.
Yeah, I think we should win.
I think so too, and we are overwhelming favourites. We're the shortest price favourites for any of the 4 finals this week, and I think that comes down to obviously Carlton's last 9 games. They beat the 3 bottom teams on the ladder. Those were the only wins they got in the last 9 games, but they've obviously had horrendous injuries, and they're getting a bunch of them back. So who knows what sort of difference that's going to make? It's like they're getting back all this, A-grade talent, but then you don't want to change your team too much at the same time. It's going to be a bit of a balancing act for them, but it's not going to be the same team that
took the field against West Coast or took the field. Yeah, no, I understand that. But I just, I think even I think we're just generally a better team. But I suppose we'll wait and see. The history shows that it's pretty tight.
Yep. I'm very wary. I'm very wary. I'm very nervous. I
think it's fine to be that, and I think everyone would probably be nervous about it in terms of how we've played. I suppose their ability to just put scores on with, sort of quick stoppage and scoring from stoppage and stuff like that. But it just depends on things like, is Walsh's ability to run. Do we just plant Dunkley on Cripps?
I mean, that's been the, you can't look any, that game at Marvel Stadium, last year before, where he kept Cripps to 2/5 of fuck all and got plenty of the ball himself, like double-digit tackles, hit the scoreboard. It was Dunkley's best game for the club. And if he can get anywhere near to that, especially when Cripps is in, blistering form at the moment, yeah, he's got to be target number one.
Walsh's run looks a little bit not good, but I mean, people can just lift for finals as well, and I think we've also got to remember it is an elimination final, and it is, it's the bottom half of the top four, so it's, yeah, like, this will sound stupid, but it's like, do Carlton realistically think they can win a flag this year?
I think...
I don't think...
Just about anyone in this 8 can win it.
Yeah. I think we can barely win a flag at the moment.
We've definitely made it hard for ourselves. Missing out on top 4, we've definitely made it hard for ourselves. Like, not finishing top 4 and making top 4, like, the difference between our chances is just so massive there. Because we've just made it so difficult for ourselves now with, one home final, then you got to run the table away. Whereas you finish top 4, you get the double chance. Yeah. But, you make the bed. You got to lie in it.
It might have been, like, David King said some good things, and I think the one where he said, even though teams can win it from outside the top 4, the stakes of a top 4 spot are so much more important with that in mind. So at least we know that if we win, we go to Sydney regardless. So our path is kind of set, and then dependent on what happens between, Bulldogs and Hawthorn and whatever. That's the wrong way.
Yeah, I think
that's the wrong way of the draw. We'll probably end up in Adelaide or the M. So we'll at least know what our path would be.
Yep.
Before it happens, so they can get in there on the relatively cheaper flights.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. Well, I don't want to think too much ahead. Like I said, I'm extremely nervous about this game, and it's just the unknown with Carlton and their team lineup, and that last game against Essendon, as we said, it just wasn't the confidence builder that we needed heading into finals. So I'm just like, our form just so shaky leading up. Like, obviously the 9 weeks before that, perfect, and then just a big stumble in the last 3 weeks. It just hasn't filled me with any sort of confidence.
Well, hopefully they can flick the switch, but from there.
All right. You want to have a look at some votes for hoponbrewerytours.com.au. Book yourself a half for a full day tour right now. Get a gift voucher. Maybe organise a Christmas party. Whatever you want to do. hoponbrewerytours.com.au. This is for the JB, the best player of the home and away season. Do you want me to read out everyone that got a vote? We can quickly.
Maybe. I feel like Harris Andrews is probably going to get snubbed in this one too, isn't he?
Yes. All right. So Bruce, Harry Sharp, and Logan Morris all finished with 1 vote. Jack Payne and Cal Archie, 3 votes. Answorth.
No twos.
No twos. Answorth with 6. Yeah. Wilmot with 7, which is made basically entirely up of singles. Big O finished with 10. Harris Andrews and Kyle Lohman, 12. Eric Hipwood finished with 13. Danaher, Ryan Lester, 15. Danaher, 16. Jared Berry, 17. Dane Zorko, 19 in 4th position. Hugh McCluggage, 24 votes. Josh Dunkley, 32 votes in 2nd. And Lockie Neal, way out on 45 votes, takes the top spot, which will come as no surprise to absolutely anyone.
It's funny because he probably doesn't get anywhere near as many votes as he should get anyway.
Yep.
Because I don't vote for him very often.
And there was definitely...
I like to throw in...
There was one game I was like, I can't I can't keep giving Neil votes, even though he clearly deserved the 3 and he missed out on votes altogether. And then the next week, I have to give it. I think that was the Gold Coast game, actually. The second time around, we played the Gold Coast.
Dunkley in second's a weird one, eh? Good job. Did you factor in the vote that I took away from him last week? Sorry?
Yes, I did.
Right, well,
so there you go.
Good job, Lockie Neal.
We'll start some more votes starting this Saturday. Do you want to structure this differently? Do you still go 3-2-1? Do you want to go like a top 5?
No, 3-2-1's good. We were pretty on the money last year. I'm pretty sure it was Kitty Coleman and
Joe Dan, probably. Yeah.
Yeah. It was pretty much bang on, I think.
Yep.
No, it was Kitty Coleman and Hugh McCluggage I think they tied top, or were within 1 vote or something, and it lined up perfectly with what the club did anyway. So it was cool.
Yeah, I don't think our votes will probably reflect what the club does for the home and away. I think Zorko will probably be higher up, as will probably Harris Andrews, and probably Joe Danaher actually, but. That top 3.
That reflects more the amount of Brownlow votes that Lockie Neal will probably end up getting, which will be a lot more than anybody else.
Yes, I'd say so for sure.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
All right,
Good
and
job.
the last thing for the show today, and if there's anything else you want to have a chat about, please chuck it in. But Ross has sent through via email, and you can do this at any time, blfancast@gmail.com. And a massive shout out to Ross, because this is a lot of fun. And this is all for Crisp Communications, chriscomms.co. He said, "Hey lads, still love the podcast. After the loss against the Pies, I took JB's advice and switched off Kingy and Melbourne media for my mental health. Anyway, I thought I'd look back on some of your post-pod..."
Hold on, hang on. Wasn't that my advice? Your advice was to like hate watch.
No, that's not my advice. That's something I do because I hate myself. But my advice would definitely not be to do that. He said he'd look back on some of our past podcasts and see what you said about various players and the team.
Shit.
He's made it into a test for us. He said this is not his idea. He heard it on an EPL podcast that he listens to. So he's got 8 quotes from us.
Oh, I'm going to die.
No, this is good. And I must have, I've looked ahead, so it'll be largely like me asking you this, but I did this in my brain at the same time as I was reading this email. So he goes, to see if you can work out which one of you said what about which player. So quote number 1, and I knew who said this. Quote number 1 is, "The proof of the captain is in the captaining." Now,
I feel like that's got to be me, because no one else uses that expression correctly.
Yes. The proof of the captain is in the captaining. Patrick butchers this proverb worse than Charlie taking a set shot this year. The player was Harris Andrews on the Round 15 podcast.
How dare you? The quote, the expression is not "the proof is in the pudding." It's the quote is "the proof of the pudding is in the eating."
Well, there you go.
So I suppose technically it would be "the proof of the captain is in the leading."
In the eating.
What do captains do? They captain. Yeah.
And that's probably why you said what you said.
Anyway, I'm standing by that as the King's English. So,
all right.
Fight me.
Quote number 2. "I consider making the top 8 and utilising these young players an A+." Now I do remember this one.
Yeah, that sounds like something insane either of us would say, doesn't it?
That one.
I'm also going to throw out a recommendation. Anyone that's listening to this, watch the YouTube of this.
Yeah.
It'll be funny. That's got to be you, right?
No, that was you again. And I remember you saying this. Because this is around the same time I said that we're probably going to make bottom half of the 8, or more likely 9th to 12th.
Is the twist here going to be that everything is stuff that I've said?
No, there's definitely a few me's in here. So you said this after round 9, and you said, getting these young players some finals experience, that'll probably be like a good outcome for this year. I do remember that one.
All right, fair enough. What game is that? That's when we've just drawn with Adelaide.
I think so.
All right.
Number 3. The ultimate shithousery in a player winning a certain award.
That's got to be you.
Yeah. I knew it was me, and I knew it was going to be about Zorko because he's Captain Shithousery. And it was after him winning the Marcus Ashcroft medal in the first Q Clash.
Or whatever, yeah.
Yep. Ross goes on to say it's a bit harsh for our all-Australian halfback.
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny the dichotomy of earlier on in this episode of me being like, he's less annoying than he was, and this comes up. So it just goes to show how much people can grow in either a time between round 8 and round 20, I think.
All right, this one was fairly recent, and a lot of people liked this quote. Number 4, this meatball steak has high cholesterol.
Was that me talking about David King?
It was you talking about David King.
Oh, yeah.
The meatball steak of a man, I think you called him. Get your cholesterol checked.
Well, it's because he's so hunched and stuff, and which is funny. So I watched Chris Fagan's first. I watched him on the couch in 2017.
Yep.
When it was just after we'd beaten Essendon down at Docklands.
Oh, the emotional nourishment game.
Yeah, the proof of the nourishment is in the eating. That's all I got to say about that. But on the couch, very different makeup there. You had Jared Healy, you had Brownie, Dunstall, and a very less meatballish, more of a chicken tenderloin, David King.
Yeah.
So interesting that.
He's not willing to accept that he's probably an XL in dress shirts now, is he? He's still trying to stuff himself into larges.
Yeah, which is fine. I've given myself over, even though I'm probably an L. I'm just like double XL all the time so I can breathe.
All right, number 5. You can see him at the ground, and then when your brain fixes itself when you see him on TV.
Well, that definitely sounds like the insanity of me.
Yes. Do you remember who that was about?
Who am I? Is it about one of our blokes or an opposing player?
No, it's about us.
Him at the ground and then he brain fixes so far out. Is it like? It sounds like it'd be a gangled creature. Who is it?
Sort of, yeah. It's on Hipwood, on how much work you see him do around the ground that you can't see on TV.
Okay, so it wasn't a physical assessment, was it?
No. Well, sort of.
But also, it was the most gangled creature.
Yes.
I've said it before. You can have this one for later. So I've described Hipwood to a lot of people as if an alien came to Earth and had never seen a human.
Sure.
But had a written description of what a beautiful human looked like, they would make Eric Hipwood because it's like he's tall with like fine hair and high cheekbones and like piercing stare, and it's all wrong. It's all wrong. None of it adds up. He's like the Room of people. If you remember, the film The Room.
Yes.
Like the film that just doesn't make sense. That's what Hipwood is as an AFL footballer / human.
Sure.
Not a human.
Weirdly enough, I'm following exactly what you're saying, and I hate that about me. Number 6, the obvious standout for the 3 votes in this 2-point win at home. Now, this, I assumed, was the Melbourne game, where we won by 2 points.
2 points.
Yeah.
Melbourne, do we? Oh, yeah. Sounds about right.
Oh, no, it's the Sydney game.
Oh. Was this you or me?
It was both of us.
Oh, shit.
It was about Hugh McCluggage.
So we both gave Hugh the 3, didn't
Both
we?
gave Hugh the 3 after round 19 against Sydney.
And Lachie Neale probably got 40 touches or something, didn't he?
Probably. Number 7, these 3 players could have been in any order for 3 votes after the 22-point win.
Against Gold Coast?
No, it was our first game against Melbourne.
Oh,
Down at the G.
Rayner.
Yeah, that's one of them.
Fucking hell. I don't remember that game. I just remember Rayner being good in the first minute. And did someone knackered Stephen May or something? Anyway, go on.
Rayner was one, Froggy and Josh Dunkley were the other 2 that we could have raffled off votes for. And that was me saying that.
That's pretty good. That's a good blend.
And the last one, all opposing coaches should fire hose this player as you can push his buttons and he's kind of fragile.
I said that about Zorko, but that was early on.
Yep. You've nailed it. It was you on Zorko after the round 11 game against Hawthorn.
Yeah, I wasn't happy with Zorko. That's old Zorko cropping up for one time and hopefully one time only this season.
Yep.
I think he gave away 2 50-meter penalties, and I still stand by it, and that's why I think both of us are keeping McKenna in the team, just in case.
Yep. So
I don't think he's fragile, though. I think he's definitely. I'm far more fragile. It would be a fragile kettle calling a plate glass or something.
So Ross's answer here says it was you on Zorko after the round Hawthorn 11 game and how he should be dropped and wanted more. Interesting call given the All-Australian team.
Yeah, stand by it.
You got to. Well, that was great. Like, honestly, Ross, thanks so much for providing that. That was a lot of fun, and I had a big smile on my face when I read that email yesterday, and I very much look forward to bringing it to the show today.
Well, I can tell you for my actual worst nightmare, that went surprisingly smoothly. I'm always happy to jump behind things that I say. But All-Australian or no, if Kadeen Coleman's around, he comes straight in for Zorko, which is insane to think.
Maybe he comes in for McKenna.
Yes, maybe.
That's a 2025 problem I don't want to think about. Think about people, speaking about people saying things and then having to double down on them or stand by them. Have you watched the Kane Corns Howie Games podcast chat?
No, I don't even know what that's. I know who Howie is. I know who. Yeah, I haven't watched it. That combination of words was fucking this hour in the morning. A bit much.
There is a podcast called The Howie Games, and it's by Mark Howard of Channel, Fox Footy and cricket and all that sort of stuff. He interviews sports people. He does an extended chat, like a 2 hour and a bit chat with Kane Corns. It's worth a listen.
That's two fun people. I mean, actually, one fun person and one person that I think is fun.
Yeah.
Did they do something similar, did they?
No, it's just sort of like Mark Howard having a chat to Kane Corns about, the things, everything that he's done, like running the fireman stuff,
Oh, shit. So it's one where it's not them every week. It's
No.
a one-off. Okay.
Yeah,
gotcha,
it's a one-off,
gotcha.
yeah.
I thought it was them every week, and I was like, oh, interesting.
No, I don't know.
Okay.
That's worth it every week.
No, I don't. I think Kane Corns is hard to stomach for most people for 15 minutes on his little SEN snippets. But, yeah, that sounds good. I'll give that a watch.
Yeah. All right. Before we chuff off for the week and get ready for a huge elimination final, is there anything else you want to throw out there?
I don't think so. So I'll throw myself under the bus here. Did you hear Caroline Wilson talking about Schofield's tattoos? And
yeah.
That was like, set a bad culture precedent. The funny thing is, and I've just turned 33 and have some tattoos, but I sort of thought, like, oh, it's a bit weird. Why doesn't he just wear a long sleeve shirt? Like ages ago when he started like coaching. So not that long ago. But I was like, it just is a weird feel, sort of like position of power. You kind of just, I don't know. And she said it and I was like, oh God, this is going to get like pop off. And it did. And people were like, this is insane. And I was like, I think there's a bit of merit to it,
Well, she posed a question, do you think it's getting in his way of landing the senior job? And
that's very 1980s.
Yeah.
But I don't think I think his ability is getting in the way, which is a bit average. I don't think he was necessarily prepared for it. But no, I don't think that his tattoos are a cultural problem for West Coast. But I don't... Yeah, I could see where she's coming from, and it didn't sound as insane, but the way she worded it was super insane. So
yeah.
It's kind of funny. Poor old Cara.
Yeah, she that was a definite boomer moment for her, but she's allowed those.
Which is it's yeah. So, God.
Anyway,
get Get me out of here.
All right, that'll do us. We'll be back next week, hopefully after a huge win against Carlton, and we'll be looking forward to a game in Sydney.
Sydney. Book your tickets to Sydney, everybody.